story. I've never really told it in its completion, its total thing. So we're gonna do that. See how it goes. Hopefully it won't be too long. And I'm gonna try and be as fast as I can with it. Just be aware that it is 22 years worth of story. So October 13th, 1995, brought into this world, second child, first girl, only girl as of now. Was born early, had jaundice, was put under UV light, was fine, was sent home a couple weeks after I was born. I was home for about a week, and then I got my first urinary tract infection, which put me back in the hospital because I was a newborn. From there, I was put on several different drugs, prophylactic antibiotics, to try and keep from getting urinary tract infections because I was so little. I was on a antibiotic called Gantricin from the time I was 4 months old until I was 7 years old. I took it twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. So I did that for 7 years, guys. 7 years. And it was just to try and prevent me from getting urinary tract infections. It didn't always do the job. And looking back, it's interesting to see like how my immune system reacted then to things, and to see how everything kind of clicks now. So anyways, so from there, I was, a healthy, active kid. I got sick here and there, but nothing ever major. We all played sports. I cheered for my brothers while they played football. We all swam. I tried lacrosse. I tried diving. I tried gymnastics. All kinds of stuff. And we were always going somewhere for somebody's tournament or game or whatever. So anyways, so pretty normal childhood. And then fall of 2009, the end of my year in 8th grade, my entire family had this stomach bug. And stomach bugs, 24, 48 hours and you're good. Well, for me, that was not the case. I was still really sick. I was still getting sick. And we couldn't really figure out why. We couldn't figure out what it was until one morning I woke up and I had pain in my lower abdomen on my right side, and my mom immediately panicked and called the pediatricians because she knew it was my appendix. The appendix. So she called the pediatrician. We went to the pediatrician. The pediatrician felt around in my tummy and he agreed. So he sent us to a pediatric general surgeon because that's who would have to take it out. The general surgeon then said basically, in order for my insurance company to cover the surgery, I would have to try antibiotics first. So he wrote me a script for antibiotics, told us to wait 24 hours. If I was not feeling better in 24 hours or if I was feeling worse, to call him. And so we did. And so the next day I ended up back in his office, and we were told to go straight to Harrisburg Hospital, where I would get my appendix removed that night. Got my appendix removed, was told I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital until I had a bowel movement. Didn't really understand why until I had a bowel movement. I pooped, guys. And it was one of the worst, most painful things in the world. Because I was cut open. I have about a 2 to 3 inch scar across my lower abdomen, where they went in and laparoscopically took out my appendix. But the thing you have to remember is they cut through muscle and reattached muscle, so it was painful. And my family had a good laugh for quite a while about how it still hurt to pee. after my surgery, they told me, you know, a week, 2 weeks max, and you should be feeling fine, no big deal. Well, 2 weeks came and went, and I still was not feeling better, so we went back to the doctor. And at that point, you know, my doctor said, well, maybe we're just gonna, you know, do a hard reset for her system. And so we took gluten and dairy completely out of my diet for 30 days as like a hard reset. And trust me, it was a hard reset. For those of you who don't know, if you don't watch our daily vlogs, I am a carb queen. I love anything with it has gluten, I'll eat it. Not 100%, but gluten and dairy are they're my main food groups. And so it was very hard for me. There was a lot of things I had to relearn. There was a lot of textures I had to get used to. There were a lot of fake cheeses I had to pretend were real, guys. But that did the trick. 30 days later, I was feeling good again. I was back to my normal self. I was happy. So, I was good then for about a year. And then in the spring of 2010, the end of my freshman year of high school, I woke up, I went to the bathroom, came downstairs. Hey mom, I have a urinary tract infection coming, can you call the doctor's office? Because that's how it was for us. It got to the point where I would tell my mom would call the pediatrician's office would send an antibiotic, because they knew that I knew my body. It got to the point where like a rapid test would be negative, but if they sent the culture, it would be positive. So they knew me, and they knew that I knew my body well enough to know, you know, that something was going on. So, and it was also so that I could start the antibiotics sooner and get the infection out of my system before it really had a chance to go crazy. So, started, you know, did that like we normally did, not a problem. And then, I started to have pain in my back. Nobody really said anything or mentioned anything, you know, it was just kind of a, you know, whatever. And then I started to get sick. It got to the point where, I lost, I think the first time I had a rheumatoid flare, which at that time we didn't know was a rheumatoid flare, I lost 10 pounds in about 2 weeks, because I wasn't consuming anything, and along with not consuming anything that, even fluids that I was taking in, was coming up. So I was actually hospitalized at that point for severe dehydration, along with a kidney infection. I had a nuclear kidney scan done, and where they injected me with radioisotopes into my bloodstream, and then they took a scan of my kidneys to see the function, and found that I do have some scarring in my kidneys, which would infer that I've had kidney infections before, which is possible because of all the urinary tract infections. And your urinary tract does include your kidneys, as well as your ureters and your bladder, and then your urethra. So basically, when you have a urinary tract infection, you have an infection somewhere in there. So that kind of started all of it. It took me a long time to bounce back from that. We saw 2 urologists, one in Washington, D.C., at Children's Hospital in D.C., and we also saw one in Hershey, and both urologists, after doing extensive testing and horrible testing, both told my mom that they couldn't find anything wrong, that they didn't really see anything that would warrant behavior like this. And so they recommended at that point that we go to a immunologist, that it was probably my immune system. And that is what started it all. That is where that's where I personally feel my rheumatoid story begins, is right there. Because that was the first, no, we don't know what's wrong with her, happened. And luckily, my mom never gave up. My pediatrician never gave up. And they never believed the doctors. Some of the doctors that told us some very rude things. So after seeing the urologist, both urologists, and being told that there was nothing there, we went and we saw, we set up an appointment with a rheumatologist in Hershey, but that appointment was going to be forever away, because you just kind of, you wait for an opening. But we did manage to squeak in, because at that point I was 15, or 14. I was 14. So there were some doctors who saw adults that would see young teenagers. But unfortunately, the doctor that I could see was not very pleasant. It was in his opinion that he couldn't find anything wrong with me. He didn't see anything wrong with me. There was nothing in my blood work to show that there was something wrong with me, and that it was all in my head, that I was being a brat, that I wanted attention, and that my mother needed to stop babying me. Which was very offensive both to me and my mother, and I left that appointment crying. Because it hurt so much to hear an adult who was supposed to tell me what was wrong with me tell me that I was being a brat, that I didn't know what I was talking about, that I wasn't in pain when I was. But anyways, from there, I decided that I was gonna deal. I was gonna do it. I was gonna figure it out on my own. And so I did. I started working really hard. I started working really hard. I started eating a lot healthier and just kind of rebuilding the muscle that I had lost, so that I could go to cheerleading camp. That was my one goal, and I did it. I made it. And then shortly after the season started, I tore my meniscus, which is the disc, the connective tissue that sits between your two bones. And so I tore that, and then I also had a bone bruise, which put me out for quite a few weeks. And then by the time I got back, it was cold. And that was when my second flare started. I remember standing on the track and cheering and doing my best, but I was in pain. My back hurt. It just ached. It was so cold. My whole body was cold. And I made it to the end of the game, and then I got to the edge of the gate, and I was in tears. And my parents met me at the gate and they were like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I couldn't even, it hurt to breathe. Because all of those tissues are connected to your lungs, to your back. It's insane. And you don't even really realize it until you have that pain. And all I could say was my back. And my parents practically carried me from the track to the car. And it really was. It was just because I was so cold, so the muscles had clenched and stiffened. And from there, that was the first flare that I had that my rheumatologist got to see. I saw Dr. Groh in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He is one of the specialists. He's the rheumatologist for Hershey, or the pediatric rheumatologist in Hershey. One of them. Sorry, there's several. He is one of the pediatric rheumatologists in Hershey, and he is the best. He was one of the only doctors that said, no, I agree something's wrong, and we're going to figure it out. Throughout all of the blood tests that came back normal or negative for whatever he was looking for, out of all of the x-rays and MRIs and CT scans and everything and anything he could think of, genetic testing and all of it, he believed me, and he is the best doctor for it. He diagnosed me with spondyloarthropathy, which is a type of rheumatoid arthritis. And I was started on a drug called sulfasalazine, which is basically, it's a little bit stronger than Tylenol. That's the way he explained it to us anyway. So basically it's like, in Europe, it's like over-the-counter medicine like Tylenol or Advil, but here it is considered a prescription because I guess it's a little bit stronger strength-wise. I don't really know. Took that for a while, and it did really good for a while, and then it stopped. And then I was switched to a drug called methotrexate. On methotrexate, I lost, between the flares and the medication itself, I lost probably close to 20 to 25 pounds. I probably weighed about 100 pounds soaking wet my 10th grade year. Because I was on junior year. Because I felt like I was dying. The nausea is a very strong side effect for methotrexate, and so it got to the point where I wasn't eating because I didn't want to, and when I did eat, I was sick because of that nauseous feeling. So yeah, that was fun. And then from there, I think I was on it for about 6 weeks when we switched to the injections, because the injections were supposed to, the side effects weren't supposed to be as bad with the injections. So my mom had to learn how to give me a shot, and I got shots in the back of my arm. So like this part of the backs of my arms are really tough now, because I had so many shots. I got one shot. I got a shot once a week of the methotrexate, and then once that started really not helping anymore as far as my pain levels were concerned, and the side effects were too harsh. From there, we were given the option between Humira or Enbrel, and those are both like brand names. I don't know what the generic is. My mom chose Enbrel because at that point in time, Enbrel had been on the market longer, it had been studied longer, you know, there was a lot more known about the drug itself, and so that was really important for her. And we were pretty much set to and understood that this would be something that I would probably be taking for the rest of my life. And I got that once a week, Friday nights. That was my fun Friday nights, guys. I got shots. And we did those every week in the back of my arm from halfway through junior year until the end of my freshman year in college. When I left for college, it was a big deal, you know, as far as what we were going to do, if I had a flare. You know, we tried to make sure that the university was as well prepared for me as they could be. And we had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops as far as like my as far as me being allowed to have my injections in my room, because the nurses at the health office could not give them to me because obviously they weren't prescribing them. So I had to learn how to give myself my own shots, guys. I know there are people that do it all the time, and that's great, but it weighed me out for the longest time. My mom and I used to joke that she never had to worry about me being a drug addict because I couldn't inject myself with the medication that I needed. So yeah. I had to learn how to give myself a shot, which was scary. And then I was on Enbrel until, I mean, I was feeling good. It had been a while since I had a flare. I was really feeling good, and so I started talking to my doctor about getting off of medication altogether. And so we went from once a week to every 2 weeks, and we did every 2 weeks for 3 months. And then once that was good, then we did once a month for 3 months. And once I was good with that, he said basically what I'll do is I'll give you 4, the usual prescription, and you'll just use them when you need them. And if you start using them regularly again, or you figure out something regular, let me know. But otherwise, we're just kind of gonna go with it. And so I was completely off of medication by August of 2014, which luckily I was off of it, which was when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter Eliza. And when I saw my rheumatologist, who had switched because I was an adult, so I had to change rheumatologists. When I saw him and explained everything, he said, you know, babies can be a complete miracle. Some women, it makes their rheumatoid so much worse, and some it makes it so much better. And I was blessed that mine got better. So, I was cleared from December of 2014 until June of 2016, when I started seeing a rheumatologist again because I was starting to have pain. At this point in time, it's just something here now in February of 2018. It is just something that we monitor. I take Tylenol when I need it. I have an ankle brace, I have a knee brace, I have a back brace that I don't use. I have wrist braces. I have I don't even know what else. I have slings. I have a regular routine with a physical therapist. I go in about once a month, and you know, they monitor to see how things are doing, but for the most I do my exercises at home to keep all the connective tissues strengthened as much as possible. But as of right now, I'm not back on medication yet, and I'm hoping to stay that way for a while. Honestly, because it's expensive, and it's not something that I don't have to have this medication to, like, live. So, I'm fighting it. But anyways, so that is my story. My rheumatoid arthritis story. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to either comment below or DM me on any of our social media pages that we have listed below in the description. I am always willing to answer questions, especially if it helps somebody else out. If you have your own story and you have a video of it, please leave a link down below. I would love to watch and listen. I love hearing other people's stories. It gives me a lot of hope, as well as I like to share them and be like, hey, this, like, for those normal people, it's nice to be like, hey, somebody's, you know, going through something worse. And to anybody who does not believe this story, I guarantee you it is 100% true. I have medical files and copies of x-rays and MRIs to prove anything you want. But at the end of the day, that's up to you. Just because I don't look sick, just because I'm too young to be hurting like that, doesn't mean I'm not hurting like that. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope it opened your eyes a little bit to some stuff, and we'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.